So here we are on shore with our sample, and if you look in the net here, you can see we've got lots of material. We've got some leaf matter, we've got some sticks and various plant matter. We're going to just take all that and dump it into this bucket. Oops, carefully. So one of the things that you have to watch for is that if you have for example, some large stones in your sample, you might have that, depends on where you're sampling. What you can do at this point is carefully inspect those stones, make sure there's no inverts on them. If there are, sweep them off into the basin and then return the stones into the environment. You'll see here we do have some leaves and sticks. These are actually fine to keep in here at this point because in fact there's a lot of invertebrates that actually attach to this type of material. So this size of material is not an issue. You should just hang on to all that. Don't throw it away. But as I said, if you have large stones or large pieces of wood, for example, in your sample, what you would do at this point is very carefully inspect those and then remove any inverts and return those back to the stream. But in this case here, I'm not going to throw any of this out because this kind of material will hold a lot of inverts, and that's what we're trying to sample, so we don't want to lose our sample. So at this point, the other thing you need to do is carefully inspect the net and remove any other inverts that you see there. Now some people use tweezers to do this. I just use my hands because I know that none of these things are going to bite me. So, and you can see that I've noticed some moving things. Bev's got some things up there. Yeah, so we'll take those off. Yeah, some people actually...
I'll hold it close.
Oh, okay, thanks. Some people actually use a brush to do this. I, again, prefer not to do that because that can seriously harm some of your inverts, so you don't want to do that. Here's a flat organism right here. That's actually an invert, that right there. It's a water penny, so we don't want to lose that. So the trick here is to watch for things that are moving and make sure that you get them off the net. Because remember, the purpose, part of the purpose of doing this is going to be to calculate what's called your Hilsenhoff index. And you need 100 invertebrates to do that with any kind of accuracy or precision. So you need to make sure that you have as much of that sample as possible.
A couple inverts in the other tray there.
Oh, whoops.
They just fell out.
So,
there were some up here. I'm not sure if this one.
oh, there's another water penny. Yeah, that's a good idea to actually hold your hand behind.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of penny in this little he's moving.
Oh, they're so small right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at this guy. Yeah. We
So,
got lots of stuff.
yeah. That's a good idea, Bev, to do that.
Is that pretty good?
And you'll see along the bottom of the net here, there's often inverts that you can see along the tape there, so just make sure, just get as much of this as you can. Be sure that you've got the majority of the inverts. Okay, so that's good. Thanks,
All right.
Bev. Okay, so we'll just leave that net for now. So here's our sample. So at this point, you have a couple of options, okay? If it's a nice day and you want to stay out in the field and do your count, you can certainly do that. If it's not a nice day, what you can do at this point is take all of this material, put it in your container. There's lots of these ketchup containers available, or mustard containers, whichever color you like in the tech room. You can take all of this material, put it into your ketchup container, take it back to the college, to the BioCommons, and you can process the sample there. If you're going to do this immediately, for example, the same day that you've done the collection, you can simply take that material back. You don't need to add any water, and you can process it right away. If you're not going to get to it for a couple of days, what you need to do is add some preservative into your container, isopropyl alcohol, which is available also in our tech room, room 107. You can preserve the sample and then do your count later. So there's a couple of options should you decide to not do your processing right here at the stream. If you choose to do your processing here at the stream, you can do that. You have to have 2 buckets though, or 2 basins in order to do that properly. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how to actually process the sample. So this is our entire sample here. What we're going to do is take what's called a subsample of that, put it into our other basin. At this point, we're now going to add some water, because what we want to do is separate this material out so that we can actually see the inverts that are in there and take them out for our count. So you add just enough water to be able to separate the material out. You can see there's lots of stuff. Bev, lots of stuff in here, right?
Yeah. Little mayflies and ossipines. Caddisflies.
So, and it's a good idea to sort of shake this material out a little bit so that you can dislodge inverts that might be hiding in there. Okay, so at this point what I would do is watch for movement. Okay, you can see there's some movement right there. There's a caddisfly. So I would take my forceps, or you can do it by hand if you're careful. Take that organism out, put it into your collecting jar. You should have a separate jar if you're going to do your subsampling right here at the stream. Enumerate and identify that. That's 1 caddisfly. I would count that as part of my tally. You can see, yeah, Bev, there's also here a nice red, looks like a worm. This is actually, from the way it's moving, I can tell that's a chironomid. So I would pick that up, put that into my sample. We've also got a flatworm here. This is a great example. Right here, it's crawling along the bottom of the tray. You can see that right there, creeping along. So that's a flatworm, so I would collect that and take it out. Basically, I would review this entire basin and collect everything that I can see moving out of this basin until I can't see any more movement after about a minute. Okay, so you have to take your time, carefully pick out, identify, and tally everything that you see. Oh yeah, there's a little... That's actually something from the terrestrial environment, so we don't want that. But you can see there's lots of movement in here. So I would collect, identify, and enumerate everything that I see in this subsample. If I don't have 100 organisms yet, I need at least 100 to do my Hilsenhop index. I would then clean this basin out after I've collected all the inverts. Go over to my main sample, get another subsample, put it in the tray, and do the process all over again. Now here's the kicker. Say I do my tally here and I've got 89 inverts in this sample. That's great. It's not quite 100, it's pretty close. I still need 100. So I would have to get a subsample from my main sample, put it in the basin, add the water, and I would have to tally and collect everything I see in that subsample. Whether I get 100 or more, I have to complete that enumeration. Okay, so the trick is, once you get to 100, you get to say, okay, we're done, if there's still creatures that you haven't collected. So you have to continue the process until you complete that subsample as well, okay, whether it's over 100 or not. So that's really, really important to remember.
So you may end up with like a couple of hundred.
You might, yeah. Yeah, you might. And I've actually done this where I ended up with 400 because, yeah, so it can happen, right? So you might get, yeah, as Bev said, you might get 200. But again, you have to continue that subsampling until you get 100 or more critters and you see nothing else moving in the tray, okay? Anything you want to add there, Bev?
No. It's just that I just would say that the sampling is, like, you do have to collect everything, like absolutely everything out of that tray.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So make sure you remember that. So this process that I've just demonstrated, you can do this in the field, you can also do it back in the biocommons with a sample that's either live or preserved, but as you can see, with a live sample, it's a lot easier to sort of see things and collect them, and it's really, really fun. So we encourage you to do that if you at all can. Okay. Another couple of important messages. Once you have processed your sample make sure that if you're here at the stream, you return everything back into the stream, because these are live specimens and you don't want them to perish. So we're going to take this and return it back into the stream. And sometimes things stick to the bottom, so you have to make sure that you get everything out. See, I've got a couple of caddisflies here. Thanks, Bill. Leave no one behind.
That's right.
All right.
Take no prisoners.
Take no prisoners, that's right. So the last thing we have to do to make sure our equipment is returned clean to the tech room is rinse out the net. So I'm just going to go and do that. That's a really good technique.
Yeah. Just to leave it clean and dry for the next person who has to use it.
Okay. So that's the end of our kick and sweep. Thanks very much for watching, and happy collecting. Thanks, Bev.
You're welcome.
That was great.